Hi everyone, welcome to the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon and Distillery News Podcast, your commercial-free, and therefore money-free, bourbon podcast for Monday, December 29th. I am Ed, and I am joined by my usual co-host, friend, and bourbon aficionado, Dean Langdon. Dean, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Ed. Thank you for asking. I hope you are too. I'm back from my little sojourn and ready to start talking about bourbon again. So
Excellent. You have a good holiday week so far? Or
so far it's been wonderful. It's all been sort of spread out. We're actually still going to have a Christmas celebration later today because when you have different blended families, that's just the way it works, isn't it?
yeah? Did you do any bourbon events this week?
So the reason I was gone last week was we had a family event up in Philadelphia. We were supposed to fly up there, canceled the flight, rescheduled us to get in at 10 o'clock at night, which wasn't going to work. So we drove to Philadelphia, and that turned into a side trip on the way back home to Sagamore Spirits in Baltimore. This is their logo right here.
Yep.
That was fun. I didn't take a tour. I just went, and, we didn't have time for all that, but picked up a couple of bottles, got to experience the distillery, which is a beautiful place right on the waterfront in Baltimore. So that was the main bourbon event this past week or so. Yeah, the Pinot de Chalon cask finish, distillery exclusive. Picked up a bottle of that. So what about you? I'm sure you had some things going on too.
No. For the first time ever. I had no bourbon events this week at all.
Ah, well, there you go. Rested and rejuvenated.
I've been catching up on reviews though. I've done tasting notes on 7 things in the last few days, which is pretty good.
Great.
Um,
Great.
so gradually get those published. And yeah, I mean I don't know, sort of refreshing to have a week without bourbon.
Well, that's right. It's a slow time of year. We're supposed to spend it, with family and relearn what we love and may not love quite so much about family. So
Well, I sort of had the opposite because Karen went down to visit her mother, so we had no family. we were
hmm,
separate over the holidays, and
yeah,
which is how I was able to get caught up on the reviews and stuff. Not that Karen slows me down, but
I understand. No, but yeah. Well, I hope you found some rest and some peace, and I'm glad you got some stuff done while you
yeah.
were on your own. So
Alrighty, you ready to dive in to
yeah,
the
let's
news?
see what's news this week.
Yeah, there's not much so. We really just have 5 stories, and we can. The first 2 will have things to talk about, and then the last 3 are just going to be pretty quick, so it should be a pretty short show. So this first story is appropriate as we may or may not be entering dry January for some. So it's another about alcohol and health, which seems to constantly be an issue that gets
Hmm.
revived and will not get settled. So a recent New York Times article reports renewed debate over alcohol and cardiovascular disease following a scientific review published by the American Heart Association in July. This is of particular interest as U.S. dietary guidelines are expected to be updated by the end of the year. According to the Times, the American Heart Association review concluded that light drinking, defined as 1 to 2 drinks per day, posed no increased risk for coronary disease, stroke, or sudden death, and possibly heart failure, and may even reduce risk, a position that contrasts with recent studies, public health warnings, and the organization's own guidance advising limited or preferably no alcohol. Critics cited by the Times argued the review gives undue weight to observational studies, has a biased study selection, diverges from CDC guidance that even moderate drinking may increase harm, and risks confusing the public amid well-established links between alcohol and cancer. American Heart Association officials told the Times the review was intended for cardiologists, not as a formal guidance, and reiterated that its advice to patients has not changed. If you don't drink, don't start. And just before we discuss, just to remind people what exactly a drink is and how that definition sort of applies to today's drinking habits. So a drink is defined as 14 grams of pure alcohol or zero point 0.6 ounces. So one drink equals 12 ounces of regular beer, and that's 5% alcohol. ABV beer, which is lower than what a lot of brew pubs serve. 5 ounces of wine at 12% ABV. And we know plenty of wine goes up to 14 or 15, especially Zinfandels and things like that. Or 1.5 ounces of an 80 proof liquor. So that's 40 ABV. So, for a lot of bourbon drinkers, we're going to be drinking bourbon that's stronger than that 80 proof. So for 100 proof liquor, 1.2 ounces equals a drink. And if you get a 1.2 ounce pour at a bar, you're probably going to be doing a little yelling and screaming. And for 130 proof spirit, for those of us that like and enjoy the high proof, 0.92 ounces equals one drink. So if you're getting a healthy 2 ounce pour, like most people would have at their own homes, of 130 proof bourbon, that's already 2.2 standard drinks, which already puts you in above the moderate category. So it's extremely easy to exceed these recommendations with drinking habits of American and the higher proof spirits and beers and wines that are around today. So, oh,
I read through the Times article and perused the actual paper, which as you pointed out, was written for cardiologists, which I am not. Um, but they clearly want this to be focused on cardiovascular risk. They're not saying alcohol is healthy. All they're saying is, look, in this study, it didn't appear to have negative effects on your cardiovascular health at this limited consumption. I don't see that's all that earth shattering. I get it. Maybe the Times overstated that a little bit by taking it as a recommendation when it wasn't. But anyway, it's not telling people to go out and drink. It's just saying, well, maybe you're not going to increase your risk of heart problems if you're a light drinker. That's good news. I mean, I'm not going to relay that, but it's still potentially a cause of things like cancer and stuff like that. So it's a should be an educated choice for everybody who drinks, shouldn't it?
yeah. And I mean, the other things to point out about the studies. So, I mean, it's not a study in itself. It's more of like a meta-analysis when it looked at a whole bunch of other studies. And one of the other criticisms of it was that they were being a little selective in the studies that they chose to look at. But nonetheless, I mean, they're, as much as the Times does make it sound like it's recommendations, the article itself was very good at pointing out all the limitations and even their ultimate guidance that they were offering to cardiologists to tell to their patients had the doubt in it that's coming from this. Because it's next to impossible to do a study on alcohol because you can't do a controlled study. You'd have to take one group and say, don't drink your entire life, and take another group and say drink your entire life, and then have another group say drink 10 drinks a day your entire life.
To excess, right.
And
Yeah.
one group can't drink more than 2 drinks. And we've learned by our definition that if you even have one glass of high proof spirit, you've surpassed that. So that's difficult. People self-report and they're not always honest when you ask them how much they drink
Right.
or if they do drink. And then, of course, there's the countless other differences in everybody's lifestyle, other health problems, medications they take, how they eat. I mean, there's just so many variables in these things. So,
Right.
I mean, I think a lot of it just goes back to really nobody particular, aside from anecdotal things about, Margie lived to 150 and she drank a shot of whiskey every day. Most people don't think drinking whiskey is particularly good for you. It's the wine industry that really sort of, gains and loses out by all this stuff because it's the only one that really sort of ran with those health benefits for a while when things said a glass of red wine or, two
Right.
glasses. Some were like, 3 to 4 glasses, pretty high recommendations are good for you. And, you live longer and you have less problems. So when things came out saying that alcohol wasn't good for you, I don't think, the most recent recommendations with these very small volumes, I'm not sure it really affected the mentality of whiskey drinkers because we never really thought it was particularly good for us in the first place. But
Hmm.
it definitely affected drinkers and it affected the wine industry, which is as we know, doing worse than the whiskey industry at this point. So
Right.
they've been the big winners and winner, and they've been sort of been the biggest loser from it. So I think they're the ones that would jump more on any recommendations saying that it's you know has some health
Yeah. I mean,
benefits again.
we're not going to see any bourbon or whiskey producers touting this article or this study and saying,
No.
hey, buy more bourbon. It just doesn't work that way. One of the interesting stats in that article is like, and I'm not sure where they got it, but like 54% of Americans drink alcohol. Um, that's that sounded pretty low to me. Of course, we're socializing with other people who drink bourbon and whiskey, right? So our groups tend to be 90+% of the people we socialize with. But um, that's a pretty big swath of the country, if that's accurate, that isn't drinking alcohol at all. And I don't know if that, just took people that were 21 or older or how they did that. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, personally, I don't believe that to be at all accurate. That came from that Gallup poll thing we discussed a while back, where they, 1,200 people across the entire country or something.
Hmm.
And it's completely the opposite of. I don't remember if it was with you or it was with you when we discussed those more
We
recent
did.
studies with people drinking more, and that had like 86% of the country or something. It was much higher, which is much more believable when
Right.
asked. And by drinking, that was just. I think the question was, have you had a drink of an alcoholic beverage this past month or something like that? It's
Hmm.
not like, do you
Hmm.
drink a gallon a day or something? I mean, it was just, anybody who's consuming. And I would believe that way more. I'd find it very hard to believe that almost half the country of drinking age adults hasn't had a single drink in like a 30-day period, not even a glass of
Right.
wine with dinner going out. That's fairly
I,
unbelievable to me.
I agree. There's, you know, studies, you can manipulate studies and surveys. And I'm not saying that's what's going on, but I agree that sounds unrealistic.
Yeah, I mean, I know they say that those Gallup things are it's statistically significant and 3% margin of error and all that, but yeah, I don't. The math is not taking into account reality in
Right.
that case. There's more to it. I'm sure we could find math that would prove that it was completely not valid because it just
Yeah, I
doesn't
think
make
you're
any
right.
sense.
I think you're right.
All right. So, all right. So we're left with again, yes, probably drinking in moderation, because the problem is all those health effects are lost as soon as you leave that moderate category anyway, and that's
Hmm.
when then alcohol becomes outright bad for you. So, yeah, I don't know what you're supposed to do with this information.
Yeah, it's just another sign that, you should take care of yourself, right? I mean, I do think that, um, you got to drink in moderation and, there's other things we should do to take care of our health, whether it's cardiovascular or otherwise. So, like everything, whiskey in moderation is okay. That's how we should enjoy it.
Yes, but that of course is not medical advice.
No, of course not. Of course not.
But all
Or
right,
legal
so,
advice.
hmm?
Or legal advice.
True. All right, so moving on to our next story. So this one, because of the timing of our podcast, we're a little late to the game on this. I'm sure everybody's heard it, but we can still discuss what the implications might be.
Mhm.
So this is the story about Beam pausing their production for the year, starting at the beginning of 2026 at their main distillery on their Clermont campus. And other things that were reported about that would be that there wouldn't be any layoffs mentioned at this time. All the affected employees will be reassigned to elsewhere in the company, and other things on the Clermont campus will remain functioning, including the Fred B. No distillery, which is their smaller, makes the small batch products and does experimental things. And so the kitchen table restaurant will stay open on that campus as well. The visitor center will stay open. And most importantly, their Booker No plant, which most people are not aware of, in Boston, Kentucky, which is actually accounts for 2/3 of their current production and had like a $400 million updating to it done just earlier, I think within the last 5 years.
Mhm.
That's going to still be operating. And we also don't know if the what exactly is going to happen with production. Are they just going to lose a third of their production now, or can the Boston plant absorb it? So, and Beam's production is supposed to be around 1,200 barrels a day, with 2/3 in the Boston campus, 1/3 in Clermont, and then just 65 to 75 barrels a day at the Fred B. No distillery, which, that's bigger than a lot of
That's a
full
lot.
size
Yeah.
distilleries, and they call that, their little small experimental
Hmm.
distillery, which I'm sure many small craft distillers would love to have a small
Yes.
distillery with that capacity at their beck and call.
I mean, I think this is a combination of all sorts of things. I mean, I do think it reflects the market. We know that sales are down. Um, and, you know, we also know that a lot of the big distilleries have been upgrading, or like Heaven Hill building a new distillery, right? Heaven Hill Springs. And so I know you and I have both toured this distillery, and I'll admit it's not a pretty distillery. It doesn't look like it's terribly efficient. And if you're going to make some substantial improvements, I suspect it's easier to do that if it's all shut down than if you do it piecemeal, and try and keep operating. So maybe this is a perfect storm of, hey, we've got reduced demand. We need to do this anyway. Here's how we're going to do it. It's a business decision. Again, I don't have any insight into Beam management or Suntory Beam, but I can see a business reason for it. Um, it's interesting that the visitor center and the kitchen restaurant are still open. I wondered if they're still going to offer tours. And so I got on the website, and yeah, you can book tours, into next year. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle those, because you're going to get a tour of a non-operating distillery, right? That may not be quite as intriguing as walking through where there's steam rising, and the fermenters are bubbling and all of those things that we're used to.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing about going through that distillery is it's not actually super tourist friendly for seeing the operating parts of it. So I mean, when
No.
you go into that distillery area, you go into that big room where there's that waterfall, and they talk to you about what goes into making bourbon and things like that.
Hmm.
And so you get that discussion there, and then you really just get a brief walk through the fermenter room, and then you can
Right.
see like the bottom of the stills.
Hmm.
And then you leave, and then you go into that
Yeah.
whole other area where you sort of get to see exhibits of the barrel dumping and how the still works. They have that very nice exhibit there. So
Right.
your
The
time in the
Cadillac that has the
actual
jar of yeast in it. Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Well, and they have that really nice diagram that actually shows how the column still works, where everything comes in, which is you learn a lot more from that, but than actually seeing the
You
bottom
do.
of the still. So the reality is you don't see much of that distillery anyway on the tour. Most of it is in the other parts. So I could see how that's going on. I mean, I guess if they actually started doing some construction and taking things apart, then you wouldn't even get to walk through. Well, the fermenters probably won't change, but the still
Yeah.
part of the distillery, the main con, production areas, which you really don't see much of anyway. So,
Yeah.
and
Hopefully
honestly,
yeah, hopefully we'll get a press release about what they are going to change. I mean, I'd love to know what kind of upgrades they're going to make,
yeah.
and you would expect it to make production more efficient and increase production. And so, when are they going to put that to use? Yeah, what worries me, because I'm used to businesses struggling, that's my world, is what if they decide just to mothball it, and just produce someplace else? Who's next? Who else is going to, shut down for months at a time, and not make upgrades and just shut down? So that's the doom and gloom stuff. I'm not sure any of that's going to happen, but those are the worries that are going to permeate the industry, just because of everything that's going on.
Well, I mean, almost everybody has shut down to some degree. I
Hmm.
mean, Diageo closed their distilleries. Green River. I mean, we've talked about those over the year. Green River had dropped, down to what, one production shift per day. They were
Yep.
no longer going 24/7. Other distilleries have had these closure periods for varying lengths of time, or they're not running. They're doing 5 days a week instead of seven. A lot of it just hasn't made the news. So I
Hmm.
mean, there's a lot of things to this. It's like we know that supply and production has exceeded demand currently. So, it's obviously the perfect time if you really, not looking for any ulterior motives here or blowing smoke, but if they really wanted to upgrade the distillery, what better time to do it? I mean, you could live without it
Right.
right
Right.
now.
They're not going to run
Um,
out of bourbon.
right. And, the other point is, I guess yeah, I mean, it seems not completely out of the question that they could potentially not update this facility. I mean, I guess we'll see. I mean, it is cyclical. I guess the question is the next time bourbon goes up again, just how much is going to be needed. And,
Right.
everybody always talks about this. I mean, you have to look so many years in advance with bourbon. What are you supposed to
Hmm.
do? So, I mean, so this is the same thing that they have to look into their crystal ball and say, are we going to need this
Right.
production in the future? Is it worth investing and updating it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, it's a huge worldwide brand, and I don't know anymore who's making that decision, right? It may not be, um, people there on the ground at Beam. It could be somebody in the boardroom, halfway across the world. So, uh, global intrigue. We'll see what happens. Beam products aren't going to go away. I'm pretty comfortable about that.
No, I mean,
Um,
I don't. Yeah, it'd be extremely unlikely that Beam would close down. So, I mean, I don't think this is
yeah.
any way indicating that. It's just reflecting what is needed at this time. And they say they'll be doing. Well, they say they're going to be evaluating demand and all that kind of thing. And probably they imply they're going to be doing some updating of this facility and
Hmm.
upgrading of it. And I know their plans have been to be self-sufficient for energy. I think when they did the Book or No upgrade, I think they have they create their own natural gas that runs things from the
Hmm.
stillage and stuff like that. And I know they have all these plans and they already do a lot of it to recycle the water and reuse everything. So I mean they're trying to have a very decreased footprint. So that's the other thing. I mean, I'm sure you have to upgrade the distillery on the Clermont campus if you wanted to do all those things, because
Right.
when it was built, that wasn't the main
No.
concern.
No.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
So I think it's clearly a business decision. I think it's a smart one, frankly, and it may have some negativity to it, but I think Beam has proven over decades they know what they're doing, and that
yeah.
will continue.
And it's not like you were going to take this distillery offline, 5 years ago when it looked like you were going to
Hmm.
need a huge amount. So, I mean, it just seems like the time to do it. So, anyway, not to beat a dead horse, but I mean, I don't think this means the sky is falling. I think it's all just part of the process of what's going on now, and everything will be well. It's not going to be necessarily fine for 100% of the people out there, but
No,
we're going to
no.
come out of this at some point, and
Again, and again, not to beat it to death, but they're still going to have tours. They're still going to have the visitor center, and so to the extent they're generating revenue from the tourist trade. They're not doing anything to impact that. Um, this isn't going to impact sales. It seems to me like it's just an investment and, probably a timely, well thought out investment. And, the talking heads are going to run with it and try and make something of it, right? Except for us.
mhm.
We're just saying it's all going to be fine.
But another thing that I just had noticed and just wanted to point out, I don't even know how much this distillery has been running this past year because I've been through it twice within the past year and it wasn't running either time. So
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah.
just throw that out
It's
there.
like,
I mean, part of
yeah,
it might have just been during a regularly scheduled shutdown and I just happened to hit those. But, when I heard this, all I thought was, well, the last time I was there, it wasn't actually running.
so 10 to 15 years from now, it may be harder to get some of the well-aged bean products, right? You never know. But
Yeah, we'll see.
we'll see. As I said, they think in decades in distilleries, not in quarters. The shareholders don't always come first. It's what's the market gonna be like 10 years from now? Because that's when we're gonna have a bunch of stuff ready to bottle.
Yeah, it's definitely a delayed gratification business, so
Hmm.
not for the impatient.
Not at all.
All right, so I think we can move on to our next story at this point. So, Heaven Hill Brands is celebrating its 90th anniversary, marking 9 decades of independent, family-led stewardship in the American spirits industry. It's hard for this not to be a marketing language news story because it's pretty much 100% a marketing
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Founded in 1935 with no brands or inventory, the company has grown into a leading global supplier shaped by generational leadership, trusted relationships, and a portfolio of consumer beloved spirits. And that's a quote from their press release. The milestone year includes the launch of the company's refreshed corporate identity and Thriving Together platform, which we had talked about
Hmm.
earlier in the year, the opening of a new Louisville corporate office, which we also talked about, and the commissioning of the new Heaven Hill Springs Distillery, which we just talked about. In 2025, Heaven Hill also earned significant industry recognition, welcomed more than 300,000 visitors to its visitors center, and supported more than 100 charities through employee volunteerism and corporate giving. And then the other thing that they didn't include in this press release, but that one of the things they did to commemorate this was release that 90th anniversary bourbon, which had been distilled on their 80th anniversary.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a good milestone, and they should be publicizing it, right? I mean, there's not that many 90-year-old companies making good bourbon like they do. Um, and there was a charitable aspect to it. I mean, they had something called 90 for 90, where they tried to get their employees to, volunteer 90 minutes of time. And that apparently was an overwhelming success, leading to the 100 different charities that they somehow benefited this year. I mean, I think that's a good corporate citizen. That's what we want our distillers to be. And um, Heaven Hill still, the family owned, it's the outlier, right? It's not publicly traded. It's still owned by the same family, and they've been recognized for their good management. I mean, again, it sounds like a press release, like a publicity thing, but they clearly are doing good things, and
Yeah.
not just for the publicity. So I think kudos for that.
Yeah, they get commended for things all the time. And I mean, we're both big fans of their whiskey. There's no
Hmm.
questioning that. So, yeah, so
Yeah,
good for them.
Elijah
Congratulations.
Craig, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Rye got Whiskey of the Year this year from somebody. So
I think it was
I forget
that
who.
was Whiskey Advocate, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Right there.
So.
It, yeah, that's a whole other story. Keeping track of where all the countless awards given out
Right,
every year,
right, yeah.
but they did just get that in Whiskey Advocate. Um, so yeah, I believe it was Whiskey Advocate. All right, so moving on. Here's a unusual little bit of good news in the whiskey industry, which is it's not American, but I threw this in here because we don't usually have too much
Hmm.
upbeat to report on. So according to the Spirits Business's World Spirits Report 2025, Irish whiskey is showing renewed momentum, with exports rising 13% in value and 3% in volume last year, based on data from Board Bia, which is the Irish Food Board. Distillery tourism has also rebounded, with visitor numbers exceeding 1 million in the year to 2025, the highest level since the pandemic, according to the Irish Whiskey Association. While the U.S. remains the category's largest market, exports to it declined by 3.5% last year. However, growth has been driven by other regions, including India, Japan, and the UK, with India overtaking the UK to become the fifth largest export market after a 57.5% increase in 2024. Looking ahead, Euromonitor projects continued growth, estimating Irish whiskey volumes will rise 2.1% in 2025 and 2.8% in 2026, alongside increasing export value at 4% and 6.4%, respectively.
That is, some good news, and congrats to the Irish whiskey industry for making that happen. It seems like it's what American producers have been focused on for years, which is expanding global markets. And we've hit a speed bump, I think, in expanding global markets, just from an economic sense, and some of the things that are happening with our economy and our administration. So I would hope that a reversal of those would do the same kind of thing for the bourbon industry and the American whiskey industry. But I'm not an economist. I'm not a politician. Who knows? But that seems to be a factor, is having that expanded marketplace. And I know bourbon has tried to do that and continues to try to do that. So let's see what we can do to foster it.
Yeah, I mean, all the major whiskey categories from all the major countries, I mean, um, all of them have had their goals to expand to the global market, and we've talked about that before. I mean, they're everybody can't can't succeed at it. So, I don't know if this is an effect that where like our country's tariffs have actually helped other countries that don't have to deal with them dealing with other countries, because we know
Right.
India has really high fees for people coming in, and it's been cut for us for bourbon to some degree, and it's also been cut for Scotch, but I don't think it's been cut for Irish whiskey. So that's like a hurdle that they have to overcome. Because India's tariffs, we had talked about these a long time ago. I mean, they're insane. It's like
Yep.
150% to, I mean, it was like, and it was cut to like, or it was cut to 150 or 100, and that was like a huge success.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it was 100% or more, and it got reduced maybe below 100%
Yeah.
for American whiskeys. It's like, yeah, okay, that's still crazy. I mean, and there are Indian whiskeys, so you're limiting the market by that.
Right. So everybody has their eye on that country because it's obviously got a huge population. And even if you can get, if you got 1% of it, you'd greatly
Yeah.
increase your
Yeah.
sales tremendously. The other thing I thought about these statistics that was interesting was that the exports rose 13% in value and 3.6% in volume. So what does
Mhm.
that mean? The price has been raised considerably? Because,
That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, if people are buying higher end products, and that also makes sense. I mean, I've gotten more aware of, the variety of Irish whiskeys, and the fact that there are, Redbreast 12 and things like that are going to be more than, my Jamesons or whatever, you know. Just like bourbon, there's top shelf, there's middle shelf, and bottom shelf Irish
mhm.
whiskeys, right? So maybe they're doing a better job of selling the top shelf overseas.
Well, and interestingly, that would go with the trend in this country as well, although it's down in this country. But that could be tariffs, who knows? But because when we've talked about the drinking trends as well, that people are supposedly moderating, the getting away from dry January and stuff was more that people are just moderating in general and drinking better rather than more. So,
Right.
but then you also
So we
have the
figured it out. Perfect. Yeah.
well, except for the other part where the economy side has people drinking less expensive or not drinking at all because of the cost of alcohol.
Right.
So I don't know. There's an awful lot of things in play in the world these days,
Hmm.
but
There are.
glad that it's working out well for the Irish whiskey industry, at least for
Yes.
somebody's got to, because if it's working out well for them, it should start working out well for the other whiskey
Right.
industries, countries, including the US as well. I mean, that's a good sign if things are getting into other markets. We don't know if that's interesting. They didn't mention Canada in here. I mean, the places where we know our tariffs have had the
Mm.
biggest effect. So you would assume Irish whiskey's gone up there. Maybe Canadians are just drinking Canadian now. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, more news to follow. Hopefully, we'll be saying that about bourbon very soon. That
We hope so. Yes,
yes.
indeed.
All right, and then our last story. The Kentucky Distillers Association announced the incoming class of its 2026 Leadership Academy, a 20-member cohort from distilling and industry affiliated member companies. Launched in 2022, the Leadership Academy spans 10 sessions held January through November, providing hands-on exposure to every facet of the bourbon industry, including bourbon tourism, legislative priorities, technical safety standards, and more. According to KDA President Eric Gregory, the program reflects the talent that's inspiring and fueling Kentucky's signature industry. This will be the fifth KDA Leadership Academy class, and I'm not going to read all the members off, but if you go to bourbonobsessed.com or look in my news carousels on Instagram or TikTok, so bourbon_obsessed or bourbon obsessed, respectively, you can find the list of everybody and actually their pictures.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't, didn't recognize any names on the list, which I thought was good. This looks like it's a program for lack of a better term, mid-level participants from across the industry, um, and meant to enhance their capabilities. And it's always good in any industry. It's not a convention, it's a class. It looks like they meet once a month for like 9 or 10 months. So, but coming back again and again to meet with those people, have exchange of ideas at the same time being, learning about things is a great process. What I did notice was there wasn't anyone there from most of the big guys. Like there wasn't anyone there from Buffalo Trace or Wild Turkey or Beam. There was somebody there from Heaven Hill, but that was like the largest producer that I saw, had participants, and the others were more mid-level or craft associated, folks. So I also think that's good,
Yeah, but I mean, that may reflect how many smaller companies,
yeah.
distilleries there are out there nowadays. But Lofted
Hmm.
Spirits had two people.
Yep.
They're a pretty big size company. But yeah, I recognize some of the names. But I mean, the other reason we don't recognize a lot of the names is because a lot of the people are more on the production side or the human
Yep.
resources side. I saw one person was, and
Hmm.
so that we're not gonna know their names. They don't make the news, obviously. I mean, and they're not on
Right.
the visitor center. The
Yeah.
people that you're gonna see when you go to these places.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's internal. It's the mid to me. It's the mid level. You're going to be in production or something that is not going to be consumer facing, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, a few of the people were visitor center or the
Hmm.
social media side. I mean, it's a mix, but yeah, I mean, it's obviously people that would be career focused and want leadership, the training in all
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's good. So congratulations to all those people, and yeah, that wraps up our short news week. We'll probably
Let me throw in one update on the news that I ran across in the past few days, and again, shout out to the Bourbon and Rye individual who posts these updates on the Uncle Nearest case. But the latest development there is the owners have filed a motion asking to remove the receiver and restore control of the company to the owners. And this is somebody that they suggested to the court as receiver. They're arguing that sales have declined since the receiver was appointed, and that they're more than capable of taking care of the company and things like that. Um, and the Bourbon and Rye guy was of the opinion that that's going to fail. For what it's worth, I'm of the same opinion. The judge is not going to undo the receivership once they've granted it, and it'll be interesting to see what the judge does with that motion. So, for folks who care about Uncle Nearest, that's what's going on in that case.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so essentially, that would just bring everything back to the beginning,
Right. Yeah. Right.
right where
Right.
we started. It would seem impossible that the people that they owe money to would remotely not fight
There,
back.
no, yeah. I mean, if they would get someone to support them in that, it might have a chance. But I can't imagine any of the, there's not a creditor that I can think of. I mean, if they want to keep this company, frankly, they need to find somebody to step up and buy it for them. I mean, that's the long and short of it.
Yeah. Well, we have not talked about that in a while. Well, because there's never press releases, so I'm glad that you're
Right.
keeping up with it, and we can keep everybody. I mean, my wife is very interested in the story. She reads Mikey's things all the time.
Hmm. Yeah,
He
he's
is,
excellent. I mean, he does an excellent job of reporting on it. So
well, and an enormous amount of time. I mean, that he's just written volumes at this point.
he has, yeah. He keeps talking about his cold brew, and that's how he keeps doing it. Is he must have some really good cold brews. All I can say.
So for anybody who's interested, go to the Bourbon and Rye Club and read his blog. It's extremely detailed information about the entire Uncle Nearest since the beginning. So, all right. Anything else? We done?
That's it. That's it. Thank you for letting me jump in with that. So I think it was
No,
hopefully folks will find it interesting.
you're always welcome to jump in with interesting news stories. Okay, so I guess that about does it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Bourbon Obsessed Bourbon and Distillery News Podcast, your commercial-free and therefore money-free bourbon podcast. We'll possibly be back next Monday for a new releases news podcast, but it's extremely unlikely as we yet to have a single new release this week, and I would be very surprised if we get any more in this upcoming week. So we'll probably be back in 2 weeks. And there'll hopefully be at least 1 or 2 new releases after the first of the year. Also, be sure to like and follow us at your preferred podcast provider so that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to tell all your friends, too. You can also head over to bourbonobsessed.com to check out some of our over 350 bourbon reviews and over 50 distillery write-ups. While you are there, you can also sign up to have my newsletters delivered directly to your inbox. Finally, I can also be found on Instagram at Bourbon_Obsessed and Facebook at Bourbon Obsessed, and would love for you to follow me there as well. Dean, where can they find you?
Folks can find me on Instagram at Dean of Bourbon with underscores. A couple pics from Sagamore from last weekend are up there. And usually there's something new once a week or so. So it won't take up a lot of your time to follow me on Instagram.
Excellent selling point. Follow me, it won't take much time. But one thing interesting I didn't point out about Sagamore, that was actually the first distillery write-up ever on bourbonobsessed.com way back in 2019.
Wow. Yeah.
And we've since
it's a beautiful
visited.
Place.
It is. We visited again like 2 years ago and updated our write-up. And yeah, I'm a big fan of their Rise. I would have loved to have tried the bourbon, sent you there to get it, but
you know, I'm a failure and you still have me on. I don't get it.
Well, next time we may have to send you back. This time you really will be on assignment.
Yeah. We'll do that.
All right, everybody. We'll see you after the new year. So happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.